Joe Espada says that they want Yordan Alvarez to play a lot out in the outfield. Josh, you mentioned this in the pre-show. It's like they're talking about they want to get better on defense, but Yordan seems to play better and more confidently with the bat in his hand when he plays in left. Now, we all know correlation, not causation, but after seeing Yordan's double knee buckle or sliding double knee buckle, which as I think about it, it sounds like a wrestling move. It's not, but it should be. His sliding double knee buckle, I'm basically done seeing Yordan in the outfield just from a safety standpoint. But it does raise a question: is if Yordan's playing so much in left, then where does Chas McCormick play? What's the ratio of him in the outfield? They've said that they want Chas playing every day, but that does beg a lot of questions when you're adding all that context in. Charlie, let's start with you. How much do we see Yordan playing in left, and where do we see? How does this jumble Chas McCormick in the mix?
There is a balance with Yordan, who especially in cozy Minute Maid Park is a wholly capable left fielder. He's a plus arm for a left fielder. Certain other ballparks, all right, you don't want him having to patrol all that much ground. So maybe proportionally he plays a higher percentage of left field at home than on the road. Yordan likes to play the outfield because he's a healthy, vibrant, not yet 27-year-old baseball player. So why do I want to sit in the dugout the whole game? Well, it worked out pretty well for David Ortiz's career from pretty early on that, hey, big guy, you're going to hit some more, break glass in case of emergency if you need a glove. Yordan, yes, in 2023 hit better when playing the field as well, but it's not as if he was punch when the left fielder and Judy won the DH. His OPS when DHing last season was 968. That's elite. His OPS when playing left field was eliter, 1,028. So I don't think it's critical that he plays the outfield 4 or 5 times per week. But I also think if he has some skills that you can use there, and if he is part of a timeshare with McCormick, the old Chevy Chase line from Saturday Night Live, I was told there would be no math. Well, here's a little, right? We know Kyle Tucker's your everyday right fielder. Is Jake Meyers going to earn his keep with the idea that he's going to be the predominant playing time center fielder starting the season? Well, if we take predominant as 3/4 of the time, if Yordan plays half the time in left field, Chas plays half the time in left field, that leaves 1/4 of the time for Chas in center field, meaning both McCormick and Meyers would be playing 3/4 of the time. Well, I don't want Meyers playing as much as Chas McCormick unless Jake Meyers is going to make a leap this season. So you need to move off those numbers a little bit. And it's also a little complicated in that since Meyers and Chas are both right-handed hitters, it's not like they platoon them in center field. I'm going to go with water finds its level. Number one, let Yordan stay healthy, knees, oblique, back, hands. And if he plays 150 games, fun game, what kind of numbers could he put up over a full and healthy season? Chas McCormick, I think, should be a 130 to 140 game player. Jake Meyers, maybe 100 to 110, if he can establish himself as a viable major leaguer worthy of that playing time, irrespective of his defense.
For me, I'm just kind of curious. It sounds like the move to put Jake Meyers out there more often in center field is to get better on defense. But wouldn't you, in theory, be better on defense with Chas in left, with Yordan DHing? I would think that would make more sense to me.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious how they're going to put this together this year and how they're going to balance it out. Are they really that committed to Jake Meyers, or are they just kind of saying that early on and hoping that he does progress and get better with the bat? I'm curious to see how that happens. And we also talked about Joe Espada and wanting to use the DH to give guys rest. Well, if you're, putting Jose Abreu maybe in the DH, or maybe Yainer Diaz to give him some rest, or Altuve, then, either Chas or Yordan is probably not playing. So, or Jake Meyers, just depends. I really do wonder. It seemed like Dusty Baker did not like the way Chas was playing center field at the end of last season. Felt like he got run on quite a bit. I wonder if Espada and the other guys feel the same way, if it's just they're not really happy with the way his arm looks and and that's why they'd like to give Jake Myers some more time out there. But we know how this works. They committed. They said Chaz is going to be an everyday guy. So Joe Espada, I'm just really, really interested to see how he comes out and manages all this and what they look like over the first month of the season.
And Chas McCormick has the most legendary catch in Astros history, right? Up against the wall in Philadelphia. But by all the defensive metrics, Jake Myers is the better outfielder. Sometimes the eye test can deceive an outfielder who makes a great running catch. A better outfielder maybe gets a better jump on the ball and gets to it more easily and makes it look like a more routine catch. You mentioned McCormick's throwing arm. No one's ever confused Jake Myers with Ken Griffey Jr. out there.
Yep.
Jake Myers has displayed kind of a noodle arm. I think it's just a weakness for both guys for a premium defensive center fielder. If Myers is the better guy by all their internal data at going and getting it, well, that has value, but is it enough of a difference to tilt playing time? I mean, Chas McCormick basically was a stud last season, right? For the time that he played, he was a lot better than George Springer was at pennies on the dollar for the Astros. Chas McCormick turns 29 years old in April. So he should be in the thick and prime of his career right now. I don't want to eat away at that because you're trying to force Jake Myers into playing time.
And Chaz is saying all the right things throughout all this, that he's cool with earning his spot, even though Dana Brown has said that he intends to play, or they intend for Chaz to play every day. But obviously there is question about where that place will be. We could maybe see Chaz as some DH. Speaking of that, if the Astros management didn't like Chaz's defense in 2023, please don't let them watch the tape on Kyle Tucker, because he struggled as well. And, as we're talking about guys getting opportunities at the DH, Kyle Tucker played a lot. He and Bregman played a ton of games last season. Could we see opportunities for maybe Kyle Tucker to play some DH? I know he's one of your best defensive outfielders, but if you're mixing in Jake Myers and you're going to have an extra outfielder out there, would it maybe serve to maybe give Kyle Tucker some opportunities at DH? See if maybe that doesn't help out with, some of this, maybe what we saw from him at the end of the season, which maybe looked like fatigue.
I think very little in his case, just because you only have that one DH spot. And obviously, Jordan will be in it plenty. When Jordan's in the outfield, McCormick will be in it some. As Josh has talked about, Yainer Diaz is going to be earmarked for some starts there. To me, Altuve turns 34 in May, right beyond the busted hand at the WBC last year. Remember, he missed several weeks with an oblique issue of his own. I think Altuve should be DHing probably at least once every couple of weeks. And then if you want to spot Bregman, right, he's 3 years older than Kyle Tucker. So if you're thinking, well, just give the guy a rest here and there from playing in the field. And one name we haven't addressed yet here, it's a very long season. There's ample time for this. Where will Mauricio Dubon make his most starts? I don't think Espada is going to value him as highly as Dusty Baker did. Obviously, he's the second baseman when Altuve is the DH. Center field starts for him. I mean, if Myers is the primary and McCormick's there when Myers isn't, wouldn't seem to be many starts in center for Dupont. So some of these things will sort themselves out through performance, through injury. But I think Kyle Tucker's over 150 games in right field.
What are the odds the Astros make a move for an outfielder sometime during the season?
Well, I think Houston-wide, there's not a lot of buy on Jake Myers' stock. And if the prevailing notion is correct, well, either Dubon needs to produce when he presumably, at least on campus, would be the guy who seemingly would get a shot at a little more playing time. Jacob Melton better be coming on like gangbusters in the minor leagues, that you're thinking, well, let's promote from within the organization and give him a look. And maybe Pedro Leon goes nuts the first 2 months and finally can get a little bit of a look at the major league level. Or in season, of course, you can always go pursue someone who's going to be available as a fourth outfielder type. But Myers, how long will the leash be on him? The axiom is, well, the guy needs 150 plate appearances before you start judging where he is for that season. Well, if come May 15th, Jake Myers is hitting 204 with an on-base percentage below 300, given his track record, reaching for that ripcord sooner than later is what most people will want. But how will the Astros view that? What's the patience on that? Remembering that Jake Myers plays for Major League Peanuts.
And I think the schedule could have something to do with it because they play almost every day to start out the season. It's a lot of games. So guys are going to need a little bit of, time off with baseball games happening every day. It's early in the year. They don't want to push anything. You don't want those soft tissue injuries popping up. And you do have plenty of guys to mix in here with Jake Myers. But yeah, you might be right. We could get through the first, month and they've played almost 30 games. You're going to have a pretty good sample size on what Jake Myers looks like at that point. And you brought up Pedro Leon. Dana Brown said they're going to give him a really good look this spring. He still really hasn't put it together in the minors, so it's hard to imagine he's going to make the big league club and make some noise if he hasn't done it in the past. But they're going to give it a shot because they don't have a lot of other options. And of course, they did make that trade for Trey Cabbage a few weeks ago. He can play some outfield. He can play some first base. So at least he's a left-handed bat. Maybe he's somebody we see. They made that move for him for a reason. He has a lot of power. So, we'll see how it goes, but he's really going to have to stand out. They have a whole bunch of outfielders that they're trying to give playing time to see one of these guys wrestle that role away, that would kind of surprise me.
Any final thoughts on the Astros outfield before we wrap up?
Yes, just 5 weeks from Thursday until we get to see them play in a game that counts. Life is good.
That's going to be another episode of Stone Cold Stros in the books. This was fun, and it went by really quick. Hopefully it did for all the listeners as well. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your audio podcast, or give us a like on this video if you're watching on YouTube. Charlie, Josh, and I will be back next week, but you don't have to wait that long to get your Houston Sports Fix. All you have to do is subscribe to Sports Map Houston on YouTube, and we'll have some bonus content during the week for you. So until next time, go Stros!